So let's start, team. Let's talk about each one of you really taking a few minutes to share with us what's going on from a top 10 list in your world that you're coaching, and what are some winning strategies. So Jane, do you want to start from a corporate perspective?
Sure. I think one of the biggest challenges, even the strongest teams are challenged with communication, operating apart from one another. So, depending on if you're an essential service or not, you may still have some people on site, on premise within the organization, while others are operating remotely, or you may have the entire team operating remotely. And so I think the challenges they're facing is that, number one, there are so many more, I don't want to call them performance barriers, but they're working, some of them are homeschooling kids. Some of them have toddlers that don't have daycare and they're crawling all over them, and they have spouses and partners and significant others that are working with them from home. So now they don't just have their job responsibilities, but they've got all this other stuff going on. And I know all of our coaches can relate to that too. So really, I think two things I'm seeing a lot of is just your normal frustrations and challenges. And I'm just going to call it wear and tear. People are getting worn out and they're getting worn down, and really trying to keep their emotions intact. And so there's never been a better tool than hurt people. And just really, giving ourselves the opportunity to be compassionate and to give some grace during this difficult time, but really to be able to step back and take a deep breath and just anchor back into being for one another and being for the team. So I would say that communication strategy and just having a couple of those emotional tools like hurt people, and I don't know their story are super, super powerful right now.
Excellent. Love that. And so do you have some winning strategies that you've noticed that your team has come up with to really work through the communication and work through hurt people and really be able to work through that being just worn out?
Well, hurt people is just that. So some of the winning strategies is just putting that in the forefront of their mind. Again, there's oftentimes a lot of nods to like, oh yeah, that's right. And then really giving them the power to develop winning strategies. Some of them have gotten super creative in some of the things that they've done. So really passing the ball back to them and getting them to think out of the box and come up with some of the winning strategies. So I've been really impressed the way they've used Zoom and FaceTime in some interesting ways, and also developing systems. For example, they might use texting just for emergencies, and emails. They're really deciding what emails are important and relevant and putting different systems in place. And more importantly, I think they're really working hard to not take each other's time for granted, but yet wanting to make sure that they still are there to communicate with one another. And then they're just coming up with some fun, interesting ways to also stay connected, to just relax, have a little fun, try to find some joy, in this really difficult time as well, and getting them back to some laughter. We use the reaction, the high fives on Zoom, since we can't have that in person anymore. So that's been kind of a fun winning strategy too, just to feel like you're giving a high five.
So team, I hope that you can hear just the power of joy and the power of really honoring the truth. Wherever we are is a perfect place to be. We're all struggling and showing up at different times at different places. And you heard Jane really speak into the fact of just being able to come up with some new systems. And so I hope that you're coming up with some new systems. I hope you're able to really reset from a perspective of what's important, what's not important, how can we really honor each other. I mean, these are things that I hope we take forward in the new season. All of these things that we've really been challenged with, how can we determine, in our language, we would say, what's a 10, so on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is low, 10 is fabulous. And this is an opportunity to really build that 10 life in a season that's about change. And sometimes change can be really challenging. Most of the time it's really challenging. And so this is a time we've all been forced into change. And I really appreciate what Jane is saying about respecting that we don't know their story, we don't know what's going on at home, we don't know what's happening, we just know that everybody's showing up the very best they can, and being able to really anchor in that grace and that compassion and kindness, and setting up some communication systems so everybody's on the same page. So thank you for those winning strategies, Jane. Joanne, let's go to what's happening in your world from a softball perspective, and just in your both personal and professional life.
Sure. Well, our season ended early, so we were about 6 days away from a spring break trip to Hawaii when everything was canceled. So it was, for us, for the spring sport athletes, it was really traumatic and sad. And so, we really had to go through that grief of losing the season. And it was a loss, a significant loss for the student athletes and especially the seniors. So I gave them a couple of weeks just to grieve on their own. And then we got back together for weekly team calls, which has been, I think it's been good to, once I also had to grieve, once I started feeling like I could start, getting the team back together. We started having weekly team calls. We focus on how we can be our best selves every week. So we make commitments weekly as a team, and then we check in with each other. Yeah, and then in terms of just myself, I am one of those struggling homeschooling moms that my son is in second grade. And so, we're trying to figure out Google Classroom and Google Meet with the teacher and all of that, plus also getting our work done as well. So for my personal life, also, there's been some performance barriers with technology, and then also just finding time for me to be everything that I normally am. So being a coach, being a mom, being a partner, being a friend, and trying to find time for everything when I feel like it's kind of all together and mixed into one. So that's what's been going on in my world.
So from a top 10 list, I heard the tool grief. And as much as, that's something that I feel like all of us are feeling, and whether we get to name it or not, for us, from a sports life coaching perspective, we know that's such a powerful tool, just to be able to really be truthful about how we're feeling. In sports, we grieve a lot of things. In terms of an injury can be a grief, a loss of season can be a grief. And team, I just want to introduce that as a tool and really give you the opportunity to step into getting to know grief in a way that may be completely different. Maybe you hadn't thought of just being able to be sad or to be in a state of grief. And grief really takes a lot from energy and emotional management perspective, because if you're feeling more tired or a little more worn out, it could be that you're really grieving the loss of a whole life that we didn't even know or even see coming to an end. Not to mention, from a sports perspective, being a senior, or for those parents out there who have seniors, I mean, everything about what we knew has changed. And so not only are we managing change, but we're also managing grief. And so Joanne, kind of speak to that in terms of what were some winning strategies that you yourself honored from a grief perspective, as well as honoring for your team.
Sure. I think I just acknowledged it and said it out loud in our first team meeting that it's been very sad, and that I was sad, and let them know it's okay if they were experiencing that, and that we're all going to be at different stages, and that I needed a couple of weeks to just be ready. And but I wanted them to know that I wanted us to continue to move forward and support one another during this time. So in terms of the team, I think just having one another, the very first team Zoom call we had, I ended the call, but the girls wanted to stay on it. So they just really wanted to see each other. So just having each other, connecting with one another, they were on the call much longer, and I think laughing and connecting again. So I would say a strategy is just leaning on your friends and support through friendship and the people that you love.
So team, I love that support team. Again, we are huge with the support team, as well as just connecting and being able to connect to your friends and family and let them know today's a good day. This moment's a good moment. I know inside of grief that you can start off really strong in the morning and kind of have a game plan and be excited about it. And by the end of the day, or even by lunch, you may be really struggling. And so a tool for that for us is called a joy break. And that's all about just reaching out and inserting joy, reaching out to somebody that you love and asking for some joy. It's just a short, 5 or 10-minute connection. And so I just want to break down, as we talk about our top 10 and we talk about winning strategies, just really hearing that it's the little things that can make a big difference, and that it doesn't have to be kind of this gigantic something for you to really be able to make an impact in a person's life. It can be as simple as texting or calling or doing a FaceTime or setting up a Zoom call. And I love that connectivity. It's another thing I hope we bring into our next season, is to really honor just the power of connecting, and how important it is for our hearts as well as our well-being in life. Anything you want to add to that, Joanne?
I would just like to add, in sports life coaching, we use 10 moments, and that's something that I introduced to the team, and then also my family, I've introduced to them. So in my home, we actually have a 10-moment board. So whenever we have those 10 moments throughout the day, we can write them down and remember them. And then it's really amazing to have, like I have all of last summer. It's so fun to look at those and to remember all of those wonderful memories. So I've introduced it to the team, and they really love that. So they're doing that. And then also my family, we're trying to stay anchored in the positive and in the good things that happen.
So team, that is a huge tool for us. In fact, it's one of our fundamentals that we use constantly. And the desired outcome is to really bring our awareness to the great things that are happening in our life, moment by moment, day by day, really capturing those things that we call a 10. And so we'd love to give you that tool as you really dive into how to stay well during this time, mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, from a well-being perspective. And so our tool for that is, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 is low and 10 is fabulous. And you just capture the days and the moments that mean something to you. And the beautiful part about a 10 moment is that there's not a right or wrong 10 moment. It's really what matters to you. And so, as you heard in Joanne's story, really being able to share it with her athletes so that they can talk about their 10 moments, or with your family, having a collection of them. As we go through this season, there's so many things that we want to remember, the really good things, and we're going to call those the 10s. And so these are the 10 moments that we can collect in this season that are going to be the things that we're committed to holding on to and learning from, versus staying in the 1, 2, or 3 zone and really thinking about the things we don't have or what's happening. And so that's a great tool. We love it. You're going to hear it in our language constantly, and we're really committed to living our life in the 8, 9, or 10 zone. So thank you for that, Joanne. Jennifer, as we step into what's happening in Iowa and in gymnastics, catch us up.
Well, I really have been thinking a lot about like the learning styles of our athletes, and how online school and all of that has affected them. So I kind of asked them about their learning styles and the communication styles and what's been happening with them. So it's really kind of nice to hear the different things of if you're a visual learner versus a kinesthetic learner, and how online school was helping them or hurting them. The doers like it because they are on their own little task and they can do it at their own time and they have control. And some of them with the kinesthetic learners and stuff are struggling a little bit more. So the ones that have labs have now created, like one of them sent me back a text saying that she had created that she has toothpicks and marshmallows to create her, chemistry lab that she would normally have been able to see things. Other kids have used the winning strategy of putting on the captions so they can see the words coming across, because they're more a visual learner than an audio learner. So it was really interesting to see the different ways that the different learners were adapting in their new winning strategies to this new kind of learning. And also how they're reacting or reaching out to their classmates or teammates. And some of them are getting into little groups and actually texting and reaching out to their classmates different than they are their teammates. So I found that interesting. I've kind of had them all I'm kind of compiling a little mixture of what each learning style is sending us. So that's kind of been fun to see the different things they've been doing to learn differently. with my own daughter, lots of grief and pouring grace because I'm obviously a really bad online teacher or homeschool teacher. She's just ready to graduate. She doesn't know why. Because in Iowa, or actually, we can take a pass fail, and so really she doesn't have to do school. And her mother is saying she should do school. So, and I said, well, what if college in September goes online? You're going to have to figure out how you could do it, the new learning strategies on what works for you or doesn't work for you, creating a calendar, planning your day, whatever that looks like. So it's been a little bit of a struggle.
Hey, go mom. That's impressive. Yeah, we are on your support team cheering you on. And team, I'm sure that there's parents out there that are certainly relating to this in terms of really, you know, their students or their kids asking why. I mean, and first of all, I can tell you in real life, just senioritis and all of that is incredibly real. And, you know, my heart goes out to these kids to really be put in a situation that, again, this is something we've all learned and learning to do. And I love hearing the adaptability. I mean, beautiful job in terms of them really figuring out how to do this according to their strengths and their learning styles and communication styles.
Yeah, I really like that. And I've been trying to really pour a lot of grace and the whole grief tool on, yes, you get to grieve this and you have a lot of loss in what's going on, but let's look at the big kind of picture of what, but letting her have that moment of sadness because there's a whole lot of grief that goes along with it. And as a mom, you can say, oh, well, this really doesn't matter that much in the big picture of life. Let's move on. But she's not there. So to give compassion and pour grace on what she's going through. And that goes for all of our athletes. All of them are different stages. You know, ours just lost the championship season, but you know, Joanne's athletes lost the whole season. So we're all in different spots, and we're all in the different cycle of where the grief tool is, and we have to honor where we are in it. And we might spend a lot of time in one spot, and we might wish we could push through, but we'll get there. And also, I think for me personally, it's been a lot of looking at those 10 moments. And I think if you have had time with your athletes, the best part of this is I get the texts back of all the 10 moments that's happening. And so hopefully we keep those 10 moments when we get back to normalcy and we see the families outside playing, and we still have the game night, we still have the Zoom family call and the bingo that we can do together. I think all those are like the bright side of what we're figuring out that we maybe got away from and that are really important to us. So I think that's kind of like my hope on the whole part of it. I spend a lot of time in the joy tool and the joy breaks and the 10 moments. And I'm spending lots of time in nature. Maybe I should spend a little more time in working, but I think that
they're on right at this season. How are we going to get through this and be a 10? And we're getting creative at this point from that perspective.
For sure.
Jennifer, what I really value about what you're talking about is what we call just being for each other. So a very simple yet powerful way of just being for each other. And you heard Jennifer articulate beautifully that in this grief tool, we're going to be, you know, all of us at different stages, all of us feeling different, some of us feeling good, some of us feeling not so fabulous, having 10 moments, having 1 moments, and just being able to constantly say, you know, I am for you. How can I support you today? What's going on right now? And whatever is going on, I'm right beside you. And that's one thing we're so passionate about in sports life coaching is just being for each other and being on a support team and having a set of tools that can really help a person through whatever it is they're going through. And so, you know, Jennifer, well done using that personally and professionally and philanthropically, giving hope to so many people, right? Just in terms of, you know, your team, your athletes, the people that are in your life.
Yeah, thank you. It has been fun just to, and I'm not as great as everybody else could be, but reaching out to certain people every day, if it's a recruit, if it's an alum, if it's our own athletes, if it's a personal friend, I'm trying to figure out that little way that you can give the hope and just be present because yes, I like the term more physical distancing instead of social distancing, because we all need that interaction and that feeling of, camaraderie for us to feel good about what's going on in our lives. So I think that's really important for us to reach out in whatever way it is for us or for them that makes it feel good.
Yeah, Jennifer, thank you again for just pointing out it's the little things that make a big impact, and really all of us capturing that just connectivity and being able to say, who can I reach out to today and hopefully give hope to? I mean, that's really from a sports philanthropy perspective. Our whole mission is just to give hope, and it's all about the little things that can make a big difference. So thank you on that. So Melissa, tell us what's happening at Auburn. Tell us what's going on in your world.
Well, we just had an all-staff meeting today on Zoom, and our leader shared with us that we're going to be working from home through at least June 30th. So it just keeps getting a little bit longer and longer. So that's I think just the unknown. Like, we work in seasons, and a season has a beginning and an end. And I think that's really the difficult thing, is that nobody really knows what the end is. Our team we were peaking. We were really they were playing so well and just gaining so much confidence. All the things that we have worked for the last couple of years of getting this team to a certain level, and it was happening. And so, they just say there's just unfinished business. Really just turn it into a positive. We've done the Zoom calls. I was pretty quick to get on the Zoom calls with them. Didn't talk about golf for like 2 weeks of the Zoom call. We just, wanted to be there to support them and kind of start them on commitments, just to keep them grounded. And to, the only things that we worked on were academically and personally. And so the different things, I think it's just the power team of being able to hear each other's 10 moments, hear each other's commitments. And then as the weeks continued on, and I would go back and we would stat up the commitments from the week before. I mean, there were like all 8s, 9s, and 10s. And so for me to be able to sit back as a coach and tell them how proud I was of their character and who they are, and how great they're doing, through this incredibly difficult time. Some of them are actually, I personally is, at the end of a season, we get a little vacation and a little downtime. But I wasn't exhausted like I normally am, at the end of the season, I'm so tired. I wasn't really quite ready for the vacation. I'm really struggling with the schedule. My sleep pattern is way off. I go to bed so early and I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm up for a couple hours, and my sleep pattern is just way off. So that's definitely a performance barrier for me. But I think one of my favorite moments of our last Zoom meeting before finals, we're going to give them a little bit of time off because they're in finals right now. We just did the tool of strengths. So I had each, named one player, then all their teammates would name a strength that she has. And so I wrote them all down, and then I texted them each individually and did the cute little emojis. And I think I had just as much fun as they did, probably receiving them. But it was just something that's a great tool that's just very uplifting. So I'm very grateful having the tools to seamlessly move into these Zoom calls, because it's been really, really helpful to have a structure, things that they've heard before, like didn't want to try to change things up too much. That ritual routine is really helpful to have the tools.